Okay. Uh, how do you see Muslim majority countries from a psychological perspective? The same as we are looking at ourselves, there are lots of elements or things that we know we are dealing with, and they are crises, and we need to try to solve the problem. So we need to have the right way of dealing with this. In Muslim majority countries, we cannot deny that there are lots of things that we are talking about it this morning, but lots of things that are, state of denial, taboos. We don't speak about things. There are, this we have to deal with it on a psychological. We need to understand that there are many things in the Asian cultures, in the Arabic cultures, that are profoundly disturbing from a psychological viewpoint. Of course, and we cannot deny this. We have I don't know if you heard about the crisis of an Algerian writer, journalist, explaining what happened in Germany, with this raping and people, the immigrants who did what they did and he was saying that's the reality of what is happening in Muslim majority countries, because all these people, all these men are frustrated. So there is a great deal of frustration, so this is what is happening. So he was using this against Islam and the Islamic teaching and the Arab culture. So his conclusion is problematic, but the assessment is right. So there is a great deal, there are attitudes in Arab countries and Asian countries towards women, towards communication, the lack of communication within the family, the roles that have been changed and even troubled in a way which is distracted. I think that we have to deal with this. So we have to stop idealizing the Arabic or the Asian cultures by looking at the way it is, and also to face superstitions the way it should be. So I would say we have to be critical, and I would say in the name of Islam to be able to look at these problems the way they are and how do we have to deal with it. And to start with refusing the state of denial when it comes to this. Because this is just, it's very, when you go to the global side, you were laughing when I said that, but to say, for example, people in the South very often, they like the West as much as they reject it, and they dislike the fact that they like it. This has an impact on psychology. And I can tell you, when I have scholars coming from the Muslim majority country with Western, the way they look at the Western intellect, it's much more respectful, or they value their knowledge in a way which is, there is a problem here. So it has an impact on the way you deal with your own knowledge in a way. It's either you respect them a lot, or you are suspicious, or you try to convert them. But at the end, it's not an objective discussion. So at all the level, I think that we have to deal with this in a very deep way, and never to idealize what is happening in Muslim majority countries. In all the capitals in Africa and Asia and the Arab world, just to speak about the capitals, the tensions, the psychological crises are huge. The figures that we have and things that are said are very disturbing about, for example, the rate of homosexuality in Saudi Arabia. Nobody is talking about that. It's deep. It's problematic. And they all know this. I go often to Qatar. Gays and lesbians in Qatar, to the point that what they are now doing is closing the toilets for the young girls not to meet within the toilets in some schools. Nobody's talking about that. What does it mean? a state of denial. That there is a problem in the way we are tackling the issue. In the way, in fact, you have the means to bring the world within, and we are happy to show that we are developed, and at the same time, we have a state of denial about what impact all these means have on the collective psychology within the society. So when you have some movies coming from the West, and then you are not equipped, and then you say, we need to teach more Quran. It's not going to solve this problem. We have some young people in the West who knows half of the Quran. If you look at the way they are dealing outside in the streets, it's just people who have nothing to do with the ethical dimension. So I think that the formalism and this appearance that we have, the looking good, but in fact having deep crisis. So they keep on repeating homosexuality, it's to be condemned, yes, but what are you doing to educate and to help the people to be protected, and especially the girls in some Gulf state, not only, by the way, men and women. And when you visit some of these countries, they all know about it, because they are taking decisions in schools about it. So it means that about this, whatever is your take on this, at least there should be a recognition that we need to talk about this. And it's not going to be by condemnation. I don't like this business of you condemn. I'm going to surprise you. I'm saying I condemn from an Islamic viewpoint homosexuality. I don't condemn homosexuals. If you see the difference. So it's a moral stand on what homosexuality is all about. I say, from an Islamic perspective, this is not. But to go and to condemn the people, no. I may disagree with you, but I know what it means to be a human being. And when now it comes with young teenagers that are completely in a situation where they are lost within the society, that's the problem. What are we providing? What are we doing? So I would say that our take on this is to be constructively critical from a psychological perspective. In your question about what is the... Once again, whatever is the situation between two patients, one have been drinking, and at the end, the ethical decision is, as I said, in all the situations, is to balance the two options and to see where we stand. But I wouldn't go for anything which has to do a moral condemnation of a lifestyle in order to give the liver for somebody else. I don't think that this is going to happen. So the problem here is not a moral condemnation. It's just assessing the potentiality and the options. And this has to be done by, it could be done by a Muslim physician or by a non-Muslim or somebody who is an atheist or having another philosophical or religious background. It's up to him or her. But in this, it's always a question of balancing and assessing the two options that you have, or more options. But I would, because the way you are putting it, it could have been understood that there is a moral.
No, it's not the alcohol thing. Because if we change it completely.
So you just take into account the is he ready to change his life? Did he get it that now he has to stop or she has to stop? This also could be something which is, we have to be careful not to condemn the future of somebody because we know about his past or her past, which is important. We all have potentialities of changing everything straight away. Do I have an alternative model based on ethics? This was not my point. I kept on repeating since we started yesterday that I don't have a model. What I'm saying is that through our ethical approach, we can provide the current Islamic thought with new approaches and new methodologies. This is what I'm trying to do. By saying, if we start with the ethical goals, we try to reconcile the different sciences, try to make a link, a clear link between the text and the context, and go through a transdisciplinary approach. This could be helpful to come with a holistic, you were saying, a holistic approach. That's it. This is what I am. Now, what you are saying is, but it means that we have to reassess what is taught in our Islamic institutions. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I think that we have to get rid of Al-Azhar the way it is. We have to get rid of Al-Qura the way it is. I think that we need a revolution in the educational field. Because in fact, what we have there is exactly the opposite of what is needed. We have scholars who are repeating. We need scholars who are starting to think and to deal with the complexity. And we know that. But the only thing is that, and you know the problem is that even you in this room, sometimes in the way you look at the scholars, when you have a scholar coming with, Al-Azhar, and when he or she speaks Arabic, mashallah, it's only Arabic. It's a language, it's a means, it's a vehicle. It doesn't mean that he knows or she knows. We have a complex of an inferiority complex in the West. If they are coming from some institutions, we think that they are equipped. And it's a time of idealizing who they are. And especially also when they are converts, mashallah. And moreover, he or she is convert. That, I'm sorry, I'm saying as I see it, is rubbish and dangerous. Because it's not helping us. And especially of some of them in the way they went to the Islamic institutions and they come with this education. At the end, they are repeating and sometimes very traditional in the way they are. There is no construction, no input. I'm not talking about the converts. I'm talking about all the scholars that are trained there. So I have lots of respect for the people who are taking time to educate themselves, but I don't want us to idealize them. So that's also something which is important in the way, and even here, the only success of this seminar is not for you to think like me. It's to think without me, it's to think otherwise, and even to think against me. If I make you react against me by pushing you to go and to get more knowledge in order to come with arguments, it's a success. It's not for you to repeat what I'm saying. What is the point? Just I'm not educating parrots, so that's not the point. We are trying to have this critical discussion here and never to idealize anybody in the whole process. The holistic approach, what we were saying, yes, of course, this is all what I have been doing. It's the holistic approach. And in depending on the field that you have, you start with the field and then you try to have this holistic approach. You cannot have a holistic approach without the center. It depends on what you are talking about. But when it comes, for example, with psychology and education, everything that is helping you to build a human personality, you have to take into account everything. So it has to do with the family, it has to do with the school, it has to do with psychology, it has to do with communication, it has to do with the surrounding culture. This is what we need. This is really what we need. And for us, as Muslims, the fact that Al-Iman is at the center, it's not to negate the periphery of our human construction, which is what the mistake that we are doing. Iman is everything, so we end up talking only about this. Islam is everything, we end up talking about Islam. But no, Islam is everything in the way it irradiates everything. So you need to be equipped at the periphery with everything. So the way you translate your spirituality with arts, for example, there is a great deal of therapy with arts. Of course. creativity is a way you are healing. That's very important. This imagination. What do we do sometimes with, young teenagers, and what was done, for example, in Gaza, just after they were bombarded? Draw, express, make it getting out of yourself, these tensions, through your imagination. That's very important. This has to do with therapy. It has to do. So why we don't think about this as Muslims? It's as if, it's not really Islamic, because we are reducing Islam to something which is fragmented. Why? Holistic approach. But holistic approach in the way you are putting it, in the way I was putting in this morning, not in the way people are talking about it in politics, for example. It's the comprehensive approach. About the mortgage. So, just to make it simple and clear, this was a huge discussion among the scholars. And you have one institution, مجلس البحوث والإفتاء, المجلس الأوروبي للبحوث والإفتاء. So it's the European Council for Research and Fatawa, who said it was not a unanimous position. 2 of them said no. But the great majority, meaning more than 20, I think, they were saying that if you live in the West and you are dealing with the economic system and you want, in a state of necessity, to buy a house to protect yourself and your family, for example, in a good environment, protect and not to put your kids in an environment where there is no school and the environment is poor and all this. In a state of necessity, you can take a mortgage, even with interests, and this is permissible. Why? Because it's darura or haja. You are in need, and it's imperative, but it's in the situation of necessity. Some others said no. And this was perceived as fiqh al-aqaliyat. But what I said this morning is also important, is that the same council said, relying on Abu Hanifa, who was saying in a situation where you are not in a Muslim majority country. But the same council was saying, we are no longer in Dar al-Harb. So they said, we are not in Dar al-Harb, but they are using a fatwa, an old fatwa, by saying you can do it. That's the problem. So you can now consider that wherever you are today, the economic system is so pervasive everywhere that in fact you have to deal with it. So you need to find a way. So that's an answer on this by saying it's possible, but you have to assess the necessity and what you are trying to do in a sincere way. What are your goals? What is your intention? Yes, to secure money and goods, or to think about protecting a family and a project. And this could be understandable in a way, as I was telling you, in South Africa, the Muslims have a very specific status in history because they protected their goods. For example, look at, what is happening to Muslims in France. The situation is quite bad on many ways. The Muslims in Réunion Island are not at all treated the same way. You know why? Because they have an economic presence. And the economic presence is coming from where? Because they are Hanafi. And it's the Hanafi school which told them you can protect your goods. So they are powerful. No one is going to tell them no headscarf in school or no symmetry. We have a secular way of dealing with the dead. They don't have this problem in the Réunion Island. And the minister, who was again the headscarf in the metropole in Paris, visited the Réunion Island and took some pictures with young girls with the headscarf in schools. So money is directing policies. So I also saying that for us, protecting our presence is also something that could be, we have to take this in, to keep it in mind and to take it into account. And what you are saying about, yes, for the pensions and all this, you as citizens, you have the right to say, I want it to be used in such a way, in an ethical way. So you can do this. You're not going to find the halal way of using it, but as we were talking about, you can also try to make it be used in an ethical way, which is your responsibility not to let the people use the money and to put it in things which are completely against your morality. So this is a right. I don't know, I think that even in Britain it's a right, because in many countries it is.
I think they ask you whether you want to, about myself, I especially ask them not to put it in alcohol industry or in pork industry. That's the only thing which I did. So I'm just thinking now, I
Yes.
don't know, other ethical things. I ask them to put it in ethical things. So that's what
So could you tell them where they have to put it, or shall you tell them where they don't have to put it?
That time they gave me an option. Where do you want us it not to be put? So
Not to be put.
Not to be put.
Okay.
So it's so many years ago.
Okay.
So now I'm sometimes thinking, where does this money go? So I don't know whether it goes for arms to Israel. Where does it go? So I don't have a clue.
So if you have a way to say where it should go, it might be better. And if you have now to click where it shouldn't go, you can't say that.
I don't know. I have to talk to them.
But I don't know. If I thought, because in Switzerland you can say where you want it to be done, how you want it to be used. You direct them, not by not saying where, but by saying where, not by the negation or the negative thing. About the women participation, that's a good question. And once again, if you come to the scholars, some are saying we should never hear your voice because صوت المرأة عورة. You cannot read the Quran, you cannot sing, you should not be visible. Now, there is something that is the starting point. For me, this position is not the right one, and I don't have a problem with and I think that in Islam, if you look at the whole picture, the voice of the woman reading the Quran or even singing, that's not a problem. The question in everything which has to do with arts and culture has to do with your own personal intention. And this, by the way, it's not for women only, it's for men and women. What are you trying to achieve? Who do you want to be in the whole business? To be perceived you, or to serve something which is bigger than you? So this is essential. If you are an artist to serve art, it's good. If you are an artist to be visible, and it has to do with proud and sometimes arrogance in the world. You know, Yusuf Islam, when he said, I needed to stop because the way I was considered in this world was per se corrupt. Because he was an artist, he was an idol, and say, how can you pray Allah when you are in such a situation? So he had to distance himself. So entering in this means that it's possible for all of us checking our intention. Now, there is also something which is for men and women, which is anything which in this world has to do with modesty. And once again, there are steps in modesty, but there are at least 4 features that are important for men and women at the same time. When it is said, for example, and get it right, in the way you express yourself and the way you are in the world of arts, it's when you say not tied to the body, not transparent, discreet, meaning that you are, and at the same time, beautiful. And I keep on repeating the 4th one because I was in Africa and I was repeating what the scholars were saying and what, through my study, I came to say the 3 main conditions to modesty. And by the way, I was not starting with this. I say, to come to the physical modesty, you need to understand that there is intellectual modesty and psychological modesty and then physical modesty. It's not only the physical, the visible. Intellectual modesty for me is the starting point. If you don't have an intellectual modesty and you just are obsessed with the visibility, it's a problem. So modesty, it's everywhere in the way we deal with God and with human beings. But having said that, I was saying these three things, and a sheikh from Ivory Coast who was there, he smiled and said, no, there is something missing in your features. And he said beauty. And beauty means in the way you are in public, whatever is your take, you wear the headscarf, you don't wear it, you have not only the right, but it's necessary in psychological terms to feel good. So, being a practicing Muslim doesn't mean that you have to feel ugly and that this is you are so much showing that you are for God that you have nothing to do with humanity. Rubbish. That's not going to work. So these four dimensions are here. And then when you are involved in arts, check your intention, check the way you deal with your own personal modesty, because this is something which is very important, and you know how in arts and in entertainment it's played around, and then you go with this intention and with these goals when it comes to comedy, for example, thing. Some are saying, drama and this is haram. I think that what makes it haram is the substance, the way you do it, and the intention that are driving you. But if this has to do with elevation, education, sound entertainment, sometimes you have to say to Muslim, to smile and to laugh is halal. That feel good. Relax, yeah. Just things like this.
As ladies, I guess, the same question, but as ladies, we have, for example, if we're doing talks, we can't travel without mahram. That's one of my problems. I'm trying to do talks.
Who told you that?
I don't know, that's my craft. I'm trying to be creative. I'm trying to say, really,
So you are creative in inventing a mahram.
When you say that creativity is healing, yeah? My 14 years old boy who has got autism has inspired me to do things in my life, and I'm traveling and I'm giving talks to people, but I know deep in my mind, I'm just saying, yeah, Allah, don't have a muhram there, I'm not supposed to do that. But my healing and my creativity tells me to do that, because that's me, yeah? That's the way I'm dressed and that's the way I am, but I also know I'm so scared that from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I'm not doing the right thing.
That's good, but once again, what you are saying, I'm just going to extract from what you are saying something that I would invite you to do when you had one opinion coming from scholars and you end up thinking it's the only one. This is one opinion among many others. And there is one opinion saying you cannot travel more than 3 days or you cannot travel without a mahram. What was said by many scholars, and this is not new, it's very old, that the question is not about traveling with the mahram, is the security within the travel. So if you leave from a place and you go to another place and there is security during the thing, you can go for it and it's not a problem. To the point that even in this, when it comes to the pilgrimage, even Saudi Arabia reassessed the fact that you cannot only go with a man, you can go with a group of women. Because the question is about security. So the literal understanding was not without a mahram. The understanding of the goal of the statement was it's about security. Women should be safe in their travel. So now, if with the means that we have now, the way you can travel, you're not doing something. For many scholars, that's not a problem. I have my daughter. She traveled on her own, and the first one who is going to come to tell me what's this haram, I think he needs a new education. But I'm serious about this. That's
allowing ladies to be creative.
Sorry?
Because we want to be creative. Because sometimes.
No, I'm not sure. I don't see the link between traveling and being creative. You can stay here and being creative.
Like opportunity.
But what you are saying, what you are doing, the fact that you are giving talks, that you are traveling, nothing in what you are doing, it's against the Islamic principle. You have some maybe scholars who are going to say you can't do this, but this is one opinion, and I can tell you today this opinion is a minority opinion. That's it. So be careful. This is an advice to all of you. Don't repeat without checking. Now you have the means and the intellect and the books where you can check this. At least have, when the people are coming to me and say music is haram, say that's ignorance about so many others. In my training, when I wanted to get the ijaza in fiqh, when I was in Egypt, one of my teachers, and I wanted this was not studied and not taught in Al-Azhar. I spent hours with one sheikh taking 64 issues where the scholars were disagreeing. 64. Why? I wanted to know how they come to this. How? What are the arguments? And then you go out and you see people, haram. He has 2 weeks of study and he's saying haram. He doesn't know. Or scholars who were trained in Hanafi or in the Shafi'i or in the Hanbali, they come with one opinion from within their school, while within the school there are many opinions, and they say this is Islamic. No, this is not. This is one opinion. And, for example, about all this discussion about is it possible for a woman to pray in front of men or to be an imam? Imam Ibn Taymiyyah, he say she can lead the prayer because of the gestures that she has to do. She is on the back, but she's leading the prayer. And some are saying it's possible. In our tradition, the problem that we have? We are ignorant of our own tradition. For me, this discussion about leading the prayer is not the essential crisis that we have. I wouldn't start with this. There is no real authority with that. This is just misleading us. I wouldn't start with that. But in many issues that you have here, stop repeating. Go and check. Go and check. Don't let the people direct you in a way. And it's not only for men, for women. It's also for men sometimes. It's the way that we are dealing with it. I think it's dangerous. Yes, your question about this could happen. It is happening. And especially you live in a society where the people are not in majority Muslims, or even if you are in Muslim majority countries. What you have to do is, when it comes to the people, all your attitude should be clear as to your profession and the skills and the competence. But at the end, what the people are asking with their way of life and their principles is their business, is not yours. You're not responsible. What you can do is just, are you sure that this is the right medication? This is the right drug for what they are asking? So you have to be professional in the way you provide this. But you cannot start judging the people who are saying this is what is halal, haram for you, it's not for them. And what you have to do is just to stand by the requirement of your profession. This is what you have to do. Now, in Muslim majority countries, sometimes it's more difficult. And I had some doctors, they are dealing as Muslims with Muslims, doing things that were against Islam. So this is where you don't open the discussion about the morality, but your way of dealing it, your way of communicating, the way that you always leave the door open if they have questions. This is something that sometimes is needed. Sometimes they will question and they will come to you with the question while you haven't done anything, and this is where you can just communicate. But your main ethical ground is you do what you should do in the light of your professional requirements, not your moral positioning. That's the way it should be, because this is the way you have to deal with people. You cannot, even when it comes to the way they are going to live their life. This is why you, as a Muslim, you are consistent with the conditions and the requirements of your profession, not the moral judgment of the behavior of the others. You cannot do that. It's outside the limits of your profession. Now, I will tell you something. The way you practice, the way you translate this in your attitude, that is very important. the way the people are coming to you, it's not only asking you about your skills, but it should see something of your personality. That's essential. So the way you welcome, your kindness, your understanding, your readiness to listen. The problem with physicians today is that they don't have time. 10 minutes. 10 minutes to do what? Give me the drug. No, to take time, to be, we have fast food and fast, you know that. That's the reality of it. Your question, that's, in fact, there are fields and sciences where it's easier because it's perceived as less risky as to the consequences. So when it comes to medical science, there is no other way than to take from other sciences because you have to deal with it, and this is experimental objective knowledge, which is not exactly the same with human sciences, where you have a great deal of the ideology and the whole thing is constructed through human agency, and at least it's perceived as such. So when you deal with psychology, we deal with theories and we deal with philosophies, and sometimes it's perceived as being very much against the religious framework. So it's true that there are some sciences with which you better be cautious in the way you deal with them. The problem is the other way around. I think that they are not enough cautious with what is called experimental sciences and objective sciences. They take it as it is and say, oh no, this is objective, while it's wrong. It's completely wrong. As I was saying, there is no objective science, or there is no science dealing only with objectivity. It has to do with ideology, and it has to do with this framework or this connection and transdisciplinary approach that is needed. So, and this is where, in the center, we are not only using scientists to question the scholars of the text, but we want the scholars of the text to question the scientists about some of the postulates and some of the arguments about, for example, some definitions of the human, person, the integrity, justice, health, and all this. So these are to be the terminology should be questioned as well. About the role of women scholar. Where are you? Here. It's at different levels. The first level for me is that I really think, and I wrote this was, I don't know, 15 years ago, and I keep on repeating this, that I really think that women within Islamic studies are going to have an impact, and they can bring input which is new in that field. Mainly, what we call the Islamic tradition, the Turath al-Islami, it's mainly a male production. And many scholars, they don't agree. They think you be a man or woman is going to be the same. I don't agree. Sensitivity is not the same. The way you deal with your own culture is not the same. Your priorities are not the same. And your brain is not the same. Not going to work the same way. So I would say that we need that. Now, within the community today, we need ulama, men and women. But we need them also to be involved and to be vocal. And I once again, just for men to come and to speak about women's issues, it's still a man who is talking. And the way, for example, the more convincing way of talking about this is to talk from within, with your own experience. So we need institutions where women are involved. We need education. We need production. We need writings. And not to be, Akram Nadwi, Sheikh Nadwi, he wrote this book about al-muhaddithat, and that's very good. But this is from the past in the traditional way. Now we need to be able to say, where are the contemporary Muslim women who are doing something and providing something based on the tradition. So yes, I support this, and I think that this is important. That's a good question when you are saying, at the end of the day, when it comes to professionalism and visual art, with all what they are producing, it's going to be very difficult to compete. So this is why I'm saying, to compete to achieve what? This is why I think that we should not try to compete with them. Why? Because it's a lost battle, because in the visual art or even in the entertainment, they are completely using what we know is within us, which is the emotional attraction and the desires and the instincts. You're not going to win with machinery that is using everything that is nurturing the instinct and the desires that we know we have to resist. So it means that we have to do something else. And our success is not by competing to get millions versus millions. It's just to try to have something which is an alternative way of dealing with arts, knowing that this trend, it's in itself problematic, and there are tensions and crises in this successful way of dealing with entertainment. They are making money, but they are destroying lives. We don't want to make money, but we want to revive the spiritual life. So I'm not going to put this into competing. It's another mindset, which has to do with the overall thing, which is how, and you can see that today in the West, so many people, they are looking for something else. There is a crisis, a psychological crisis, an aesthetical crisis. Oops. That's not the... No, but that's fine. That's fine. So, I'm sorry. I'm talking to the... so the laptop? No, just on the... It's okay. So, what was I saying? Are you following? No, but you know how many people, so many people are looking for something else. They are attracted also by other ways of expression, other expression. And look at, by the way, if we were more creative, you know what are the books that are the more read in the West today? It's Sufi books. It means that there is a quest for meaning. There is a quest here. Why don't we think about arts as the translation of a quest with beauty? Of course, you will have arts dealing with the human instincts. We are dealing with something else. We are dealing with human elevation, something which is, look at this, listen to this. وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ حَبَّبَ إِلَيْكُمُ الْإِيمَانَ وَزَيَّنَهُ فِي قُلُوبِكُمْ. God, حَبَّبَ إِلَيْكُمْ, makes you love this faith, and He beautified it in your heart. Beauty in your heart. So we know that if we think about, we are creative, I don't want to go to competition in this. Because as you are saying, we are going to try to catch up and we are not going to succeed. So it's something else. And on the other side, which you were saying here, it's our take on visual art and music. We need, once again, to be quite clear on the flexibility and the opportunities and what is possible in these fields. And not to come with halal haram. That's not true. That's not our tradition. So, more flexibility as to the legal, deeper understanding as to the goals, in the light of what I was talking about this morning. I hope that you got this over these 2 days, that everything is connected with this overall thing, and then I'm trying to come back to this. I'm not going to give a very detailed answer about this is halal or haram. We have to put it in the big picture, as I was saying. And even with visual art, there are lots of different opinions about can you represent or not. You know, I remember 30 years ago going to some places say you cannot take picture, haram, and it was only for identity, needs, and that's it. And then you look now with all your mobiles and everything, it's less haram. And now it's about what you are doing with it, what is your, and what you are representing. If in your intention you compete and you try to compete with the creator, this is what was understood. You can't do that. But if it's a way you celebrate the beauty in the name of the creator, that's fine. So it depends on your intention. If you start with Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, even if no one hear it in the world, and your intention is celebration of beauty through visual art, ala barakatillah. Knowing that the substance should be halal. The substance of the visual. Your question about homosexuality and how can we deal with this in Muslim majority countries. The Muslim majority countries and the Gulf states, there is a state of denial that we are facing a problem here. And I don't want to come with a confusing discourse on this. What is halal and haram? What is halal and haram is haram. Now we have people who have their life, and the way there is a state of denial, it's very quick to condemn the people and not to come to an understanding that there is a vicious, corrupt reality in these societies that is pushing the people and driving them towards behavior it's all about hypocrisy. But the hypocrisy is not with the ordinary Muslims. It starts with the government. The first to be hypocrites is them. And then there is so to go to this, the starting point is to be able to open up spaces where you can discuss this in a way where there is trust within the society. That you are not perceived as being guilty because your behavior is not Islamically right, but you are just trying to struggle with the situation, and then that's a deep discussion. But it's very difficult. It's very difficult. In many Muslim majority countries, with the cultures in the way it is, it's very difficult just to be able to come to the point where there is really a state of denial. I decided in Qatar, I said I can't be in Qatar without opening the field of migrant workers. So I have a field in the center. And I told them, I'm not going to be here being silent on this. All my life is about talking about injustice. I'm not going to come there and be silent. And you deal with people, they are in a state of denial. No, they are well treated. Say, how can you do this? This new slavery is unacceptable. So it's everywhere in the region, it's wide. And I think that this is where we have to be courageous. It means that you are going to be rejected by some. Some are not going to listen to you, but it's a step-by-step process, and you can find people who are ready. And don't put all the people who are in charge at the same level. Some are ready to understand, some are ready to open. So it's a patient, strategic, and diplomatic take that you have in order to open spaces for discussion, not to condemn the people. So about this is representing what is the Islamic overall vision about men and women. This is what is the tradition. Now, do we have to deal and open the discussion in situations that are new? Yes, we have. But starting with the overall framework of the divine project. The divine project is men and women. Now there are realities that we have to deal with, and we have to come with and by the way, I can tell you that in some issues, the Shia are much more courageous than the Sunni by tackling, at least by discussing. It doesn't mean that I agree with all the answers, but at least they are discussing. not as we are doing, sometimes avoiding the question and saying that there is not. Yes, because for some, for example, they have been repeating things that the fact that we don't have an authority makes that we are repeating opinions and we are not checking the opinions. So on things that are very, and scholars at the highest level, they also change their mind on issues that it's very important. So we have to open up the discussion. About your two questions, women singing, it's you. You have three. So you'll tell me if there is one missing. It's as if I have two here. So you were, yes, I have the three. So about being involved in singing and things like this, while you know what the fashion is and how things could be instrumentalized or portrayed or promoted. That's also something that it's a choice and a personal attitude and positioning that you need to have. You know, if you start by saying, because it's risky, I'm not going to do anything, you will never do anything. Now you have to assess the risks and to say, look, now if I have the skills, I have the good intentions, and if I can do it, I have myself to find a space where I can protect myself from that. And these are things that you can have or you can start. And this means that instead of looking at fashion the way it is at the highest level or, professionals, you can, at your level at least, try to find the right way of doing it. So it might prevent you from rising very high, but it should not prevent you from doing something. So, and this is where it's true, we have to be very cautious with the risks, but not to the point not to be able to do anything, because, sad dhari'a, which is a dimension that we have in Islamic where as soon as you see that something can lead you towards something which is haram, so it's haram, it means that at the end everything is haram. So it's not true. I think it's an assessment. And for some, by the way, you can feel that you are not equipped to do that because it's too risky. So some could say it's too risky, and others could say, no, I can make it. I can do it. So some, for example, not in the field of arts, they are telling me in politics, for example, shall I go? And some are saying, I'm not equipped to do that because I'm going to be within a world which is going to destroy me. So they don't go. So Yusuf Islam, when I was telling him, don't stop, his answer is, I'm not equipped. I don't have the strength to resist what is in this world. It's 28 years later, through his son, coming back to music saying, now I'm strong enough. This is what he told me, I'm strong enough. So meaning, my foundations are clear. So it took him all this journey to come to this. So it's a psychological decision, it's a legal understanding, and it's a personal take on the issue. So if you feel, so this is where I wouldn't go in this discussion by saying it's too risky, so avoid everything. No, I say, I want to talk to you, I want to know who you are, I want to understand what do you want to achieve, and then we assess the risks, and then we take a decision, or you take a decision. But not starting with, because the ethical risk is leading us towards nowhere. About when you go to somebody and he's telling you about traveling, for example, how do you take the decision? Abu Hamid al-Ghazali, when he was asked about who is the right imam for you, where is the authority? Where are you going to find your authority? He said three things. The first is that you need to look for an imam who is close to you, so around you, in the region. Second, he has to be competent, acknowledged by other scholars as being a scholar, not an ignorant, or not a so-called scholar. Third, look at that. When he answers you, your heart feel at peace. It means that there is something coming from you. He has the knowledge, and you have the feeling, yes, I feel good with this. Let me give you an example about music. I keep on repeating this because I was myself surprised by the guy who came to me. He was coming, I was giving teaching at home, and he was coming at home, and he liked following in these classes. And he came once to me and say, I have a question. Is music, guitar, halal or haram? And I told him the three opinions. I say, it could be haram, it could be possible for some, but if it's drums, and it could be halal, depends your intention and what you are doing. And he looked at me and said, what is your position? I said, my position is the last one. I think music is not haram, it depends your intentions, what you are doing with it. I say, okay. So he was playing guitar, and I was giving him a kind of permission, you can carry on. He left, and 3 months later he came to me and said, Sheikh, I went to another Sheikh. I said, okay, that's fine. And what? He told me it's haram. I said, okay, so what is your position now? I said, I prefer his position, it's haram. I said, okay, that's fine, this is your, the feeling, it's haram. And then I looked at him and said, so no music, no guitar? He looked at me and said, no, I'm still playing, but I know it's haram. You know this? That's so, this story, if you think about it in psychological terms, is that the need to have something which is black and white, while you are still doing it, it's a psychological attitude, and at the same time, I respected his position, and by the way, years later, now he plays guitar. He's still, and he has changed his, but what I'm saying here is that the psychological individual factors are very important here, and this is why you take a decision. At the end, you went with a sincere intention to a knowledgeable person, he gave you the opinion, and now you take your decision. This is why a fatwa is never to be imposed, no constraint. It's an advice that you have, and you go ahead. Last thing about what you said, of course, sometimes the people are doing actions that at the point you have an opinion about the person. For example, my position on Saddam Hussein was very bad, or on Gaddafi and dictators. So their actions, I'm condemning their actions, but it's, for me, they have to be condemned. But I have not the final word on who they are. I was asked by a journalist recently, to say, if you, the whole story was you are in a car, and she was asking me about what you do if you see these people on you are crossing in your way, you see these people, and it was lots of questions like this. When you stop in your life, when you will come back, it was quite interesting. And then at one point say, what if you meet in the desert 3 dictators? What are you going to do with them? Do you leave them, or who do you take? Saddam Hussein, no, it was Bashar al-Assad, Netanyahu, and look at the question, or your brother? Because she was saying that my brother said that it's right to stoning is right because it's God's punishment, which was a long controversy a few years ago in France. That my brother wrote an article about this. By the way, it was not what he was saying, but she was to say, are you going to take your brother, or are you going to take another dictator? As if to distance myself from my brother. And my answer was this one. I said, you know what? If I meet anybody in the desert, maybe Hitler, I'm going to bring him in the car and go straight to the tribunal and the court, and don't let people dying in the desert. That's not my way. I bring them, go with them, going to be judged. Meaning what? It's ethically impossible for you at the end to let the people die in the desert because you are confusing what they did with who they are. No. I come, enter in the car, I'm going with you, and we go to the tribunal. Meaning that our position on this is we have to be very cautious. This is why when people are very quick on speaking about killing people, I didn't feel good at all when Yusuf al-Qaradawi was speaking about killing Gaddafi. In this country, when I was asked about, and I was very upset with the answers coming from my brothers and sisters in the United States of America, happy that bin Laden was killed when we were told he was killed. I say, yes, we are. No, I'm sorry. If what was said is true, that he was without weapon, you arrest him and you judge him. You don't kill him. Because at the end, the judgment is about the action. Killing is killing the person. You understand the point that I'm making here? So is there a situation where it's confused? Never. I will never. At the end, what I understand that even the Prophet ﷺ with the hypocrites, he was very cautious. How do we finally judge somebody? You have to be very cautious with this. So hate the actions, hate the behavior, and sometimes you can hate the people for what they are doing, but this is not the final judgment on who they are. That's my position on it. Even sometimes it's very difficult. I can say I hate Netanyahu, but I don't have the final judgment on who he is. But I hate what he's doing. Not only him, Sisi is the same.
But in terms of final judgment, do you mean that there might be other things that he's doing that...
No, that's not...
Or do you mean final judgment in terms of like salvation, or you don't want to damn somebody?
You know,
close the door to it. What do you mean?
You know, I didn't like at all Saddam Hussein. Just before being killed with this, they have this video. He came and he said a shahada before leaving. Who can tell me that in the last few hours before being killed, there is not something that happened in him that he was very sincere and deeply sincere, that at the end, you come back to the hadith, somebody can behave with the actions of hellfire, and at the last moment he goes to paradise. Who can tell that? Allahu A'lam.
Yeah.
So at one point you have to stop. So the hadith is telling you this. So that's it. Before giving the floor to you, Hussein, I was okay. No, I was going to. Just let me tell you something. It was really, thank you. I want to thank Hussein and all the Jibreel Institute for all what they organized. It was very well organized. We had very beautiful 2 days. So please pray for them and pray for what they are doing. I was told about, for the people who are also interested in the summer school that we have, go on my Facebook page. There are the indication there. If you can come to Grenada, welcome. If you can't and you want to be connected with the work, you have the leaflets, so do this. And really, I want to thank you, because I think that through the questions that I had over these 2 days, this was a very interesting seminar for me. So as much as you can, pray for your brother, inshallah. And as I'm always finishing my class, don't forget to tell the people you love that you love them. Life is fragile. Don't smile, think about it. Or smile and think about it. Thank you. أعوذ من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم نسألك بأننا نشهد أنك أنت الله الأحد الصمد الذي لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. اللهم نسألك رضاك والجنة ونعوذ بك من سخطك والنار. اللهم نعوذ بك من أن نشرك بك شيئا نعلمه ونستغفرك لما لا نعلمه. اللهم اجعلنا من الموحدين. اللهم اجعلنا من الذين يقولون لا إله إلا أنت، لا حول ولا قوة إلا بك. اللهم تقبل منا صلاتنا وركوعنا وسجودنا وأعمالنا. اللهم تقبل منا ونور صدورنا بنور الإيمان. اللهم نور صدورنا بنور الإيمان. اللهم اجعلنا نخشاك كأننا نراك. ربنا رحمتك نرجو. يا مقلب القلوب، يا مقلب القلوب، ثبت قلوبنا على دينك. اللهم لا تضع في جمعنا هذا ذنبا إلا غفرته، ولا دينا إلا قضيته، ولا هما إلا فرجته، ولا مريضا إلا شفيته. يا رحمن يا رحيم، أنت الرحمن فارحمنا. أنت الغفور فاغفر لنا. أنت التواب فتب علينا. برحمتك علينا يا كريم يا ودود يا رب العالمين. اللهم ارحم والدينا ووالدي والدينا. اللهم اغفر لجميع موتى المسلمين الذين شهدوا لك بالوحدانية ولنبيك بالرسالة وماتوا على ذلك. اللهم أكرم نزلهم ووسع مدخلهم. اللهم قو إيمان إخواننا وأخواتنا المظلومين في كل مكان. اللهم قو إيمانهم في فلسطين وفي سوريا وفي العراق وفي ليبيا وفي اليمن وفي بورما وفي أفريقيا وفي كل مكان وفي كل ميدان يا رحمن يا رحيم. قو إيمان المظلومين وعليك بالظالمين. اللهم عليك بالظالمين فاجعلنا جميعا من الصابرين. اللهم اجعلنا من الصابرين المحبوبين. فاللهم نسألك حبك وحب من يحبك والعمل الذي يبلغنا حبك يا رحمن يا رحيم يا رب العالمين. وصل اللهم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون، وسلام على المرسلين، والحمد لله رب العالمين.